There's this one conversation that I feel like has come up a lot for me, and I think this is true for a lot of people in the diaspora, and it's the question of identity, right? I think people will often ask me where I'm from, and when they find out I'm from Jamaica, sometimes they ask me, do you consider yourself Jamaican or American? Or they'll simply say, like, you're Americanized, as if that's supposed to be some kind of insult. And I'm sure, depending on the context of the conversation that you're having, maybe it is. But I feel like in this instance, for me, the answer isn't complicated, but it's also not as simple as picking one side, right? For me personally, I consider myself Jamaican because I was born in Jamaica. That's where my story started. That's my heritage, my culture, my roots, and the place where my family comes from. And nobody could ever take that away from me, right? And at the same time, I also grew up in New York. I moved to the United States when I was a child, so a big portion of my life has been spent in America. I've gone to school here. I've made friends here. I've learned how to navigate the world here. I am exposed to American culture every single day. So when people say that I've been Americanized, I don't really disagree, because how could I not be? I think sometimes people use the word Americanized as if it's some kind of criticism. But if we're being realistic, anybody who spends years living somewhere else is going to be influenced by that place, right? If it's the same thing if it was the flip side. If someone moved to Jamaica at a young age and spent most of their life there, they're going to pick up on Jamaican habits, Jamaican expressions, Jamaican perspectives, and Jamaican cultural norms, right? And the same thing happens when you grow up in America. The music you listen to, the slang you use, the way you communicate, the way you see certain issues, and even your personality can and will be influenced by the environment around you, right? That's normal. That's life. So, what I don't agree with is the idea that being influenced by America somehow makes me less Jamaican, because I've never understood that logic, nor will I ever accept that logic, because I was born in Jamaica. I was raised by Jamaican family members. I grew up around Jamaican culture, and I still maintain a connection to my roots. So why would being influenced by another country erase that? And I think we need to remember that human beings aren't one dimensional, right? Most, if not everyone, is a combination of the places they've lived, the people they've met, and the experiences they've had. And I think that's especially true for immigrants and children of immigrants, you know? And I think for me, one of the biggest reasons I still feel connected to my Jamaican roots is because I still speak Patois. And I know for some people that might not be a big deal, but for me it is. Especially because of how long I've lived in America. And so for me, language is more than just words. It carries culture, it carries humor, it carries history. There are just certain jokes that just hit different in Patois. There are certain emotions that are easier to express in Patois. There are certain ways of telling stories, giving advice, or even arguing that just feel more natural in the language. So for me, when I speak Patois, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like I'm trying to prove something. It just feels normal. It just feels like home, you know? And I think that's really important, because when you're a part of a diaspora community, sometimes you can feel like you're caught between two worlds. So it's good to have something that makes you feel anchored, because there are times when Americans see you as Jamaican, then there are times when some Jamaicans see you as American. And I feel like you can end up in this weird middle space where neither side fully understands your experience, you know? Some people who grew up entirely in Jamaica might look at you and say you're not really Jamaican because you left, especially depending on how young you left. Meanwhile, some Americans might always see you as the Jamaican person because of your background, your family, your accent, or the way you carry yourself. So where does that leave you, right? And I think for a long time, I think a lot of people in diaspora felt pressure to choose, especially children of immigrant families. They feel pressure to prove how Jamaican they are, or they feel pressure to completely embrace being American and distance themselves from where they come from. And I think for me personally, as I've gotten older and realized is I don't need to do either one. I don't need to pretend that America didn't influence me. And I don't need to pretend that Jamaica isn't a huge part of who I am, because both things can be true at the same time. I can acknowledge that New York played a major role in shaping me as a person, and I can acknowledge that spending years in America affected the way I think and see the world. And I can acknowledge that there are things that about me that are undeniably American. And at the same time, I can acknowledge that I was born Jamaican. I can acknowledge that Jamaican culture shaped me. I can acknowledge that I still feel connected to Jamaica through my family, my upbringing, my language, and my roots. And to me, that's not a contradiction. That's just simply my reality. And I think sometimes people view identity as a test, as if there are certain boxes you have to check in order to qualify. You have to sound a certain way, act a certain way, dress a certain way, live in a certain place. But identity isn't that simple. Life is more complicated than that. My experience is different from someone who spent their entire life in Jamaica. And it's also different from someone whose family has been in America for generations, right? Neither of those realities make my experience less valid. It's just different. And the older I get, the more comfortable I become with that. I don't feel the need to argue with people about who I am. I know where I was born. I know where I grew up. I know what cultures influence me. I know what languages I speak. I know what experiences shape me. And I don't think I need anyone else's permission to embrace all of those things, right? So if someone asks me whether I'm Jamaican or American, my answer is very simple. I'm Jamaican. I was born in Jamaica, but I also grew up in New York. Both places played a role in making me who I am today. Jamaica gave me my roots, and America, New York, if I'm being specific, helped shape my journey. And I don't think I have to choose one over the other, and I'm not going to.